Welcome to the Movie Draft Podcast. I'm Ethan Simi, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sophie Holsinger.
Hello, everybody.
And my other co-host, Ben Lahorn.
I'll see you at the beginning, friend.
And fucking used tenant against me in the fucking introduction, Ben.
Well, just like that. Turning off already.
And our guest, George Carmi.
How you guys doing?
And today we are collectively drafting Christopher Nolan movies. Before we dive into the madness, George, thanks so much for coming on for this pod. I had heard tell through the rumor mill that you're the Christopher Nolan guy, and Sophie went to bat for you and was like, he's got to be on this episode. And here you are. Thanks so much for showing up, dude. I'm stoked to do this with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me. I've had, like you said before we recorded, I have like very little interaction with you guys, so it's good to finally meet you.
Yeah,
it's gonna be awesome.
Nice to get you on, man. What the hell, Ben? What's your plan? What's your game? Are you're just like out of the gates, or
yeah?
How
Let's
we doing?
do it. I'm ready to go. Interstellar and Tenet to the top. Let's do this.
Okay, wow.
Let's go.
Okay, this is going to be crazy. So, okay, we are doing a collaborative draft today. We've done a collaborative draft in the future. We or in the past or in the future. Who knows? Tenet on the mind. Anything's possible.
See?
That was crazy. Holy shit. So, we work together, but also not to form a ranking of a particular set of films or filmography of some sort. Today, it is Christopher Nolan and his 12 films. This particular episode of the pod is going to drop on March 12th. We're recording a little bit early, so we're about 6 days, I believe, away from the Academy Awards right now. But in the future, when this pod comes out, it's very possible that we will be living in a reality in which Christopher Nolan has won Best Director. He has won Best Picture. George, are you on the Oppenheimer train for the Academy Awards for the steamrolling going down?
Yeah. The Oppie sweep is inevitable. Picture, director, actor, supporting actor, adapted screenplay. What else? Visual effects, everything. Give it everything. It's gonna win everything. We're about to see a Return of the King type Oscars.
I like it.
Oppenmommy, I know you're feeling good going into that.
Yeah, of course I am. It's gonna be the best.
I'm stoked. I hope that's the case. I hope I didn't like jinx anything because I'm so prominent in the universe and have that kind of power. Okay. God, I really don't know like how to kind of kick this off. I'm exceptionally nervous. I have not put in the appropriate amount of time to strategize for the chaos and madness that is going to ensue. So I'm a little bit nervous. Sophie, I'll start with you. What's your relationship to Christopher Nolan? Do you remember the first Chris Nolan movie that you saw? Give me a little background here.
Yeah. So Inception was the first Nolan film I ever watched. I was probably like 11, and I saw it and it became my favorite movie for years and years. But I don't think I was interested in like film as a whole. So I wasn't really like seeking out any other Nolan projects. But then when I did eventually do that, I just found his films to be so fun and just like how big they are and how loud they are. And yeah, now after revisiting a lot of his stuff, I will kind of follow him anywhere. I thought Inception was an outlier for a long time, but obviously now we have Oppenheimer and that's like my whole personality. So yeah, I will follow him forever and ever. George and I got to see him in person a couple of weeks ago, which was such a cool experience. And yeah, he's just kind of skyrocketed himself to one of my favorite filmmakers.
You mentioned seeing him in person. I kind of want to quickly use this as a segue to the fact that my guy's a big fan of The Curse, and he's loving what Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder are putting out. I just want to put that into the universe. Christopher Nolan's got absolute taste when it comes to that stuff. Incredible take that he's like moderating Q&As with Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie, doing a very weird show. I think that's incredible. George, I'm going to skip you for now because I want you to have time to dig into your Nolan relationship.
Let's just rush through Ben.
Ben, let's get on with it so we can get to George. Keep it moving here.
Just skip Ben.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine by me. We can just pass me. As far as my relationship with Nolan, I've seen everything since Batman Begins in theaters. I had seen Memento before that and thought it was crazy that dude was about to do a Batman movie, considering I grew up with the other Batmans, so like I left Batman and Robin and everything that means, and all of a sudden we're getting another Batman movie from this guy who did this crazy movie. It's like, okay, this is going to be kind of nuts. And it kind of was. And I think it worked out really well. So I'm a big Nolan fan. Some of his more recent stuff has, there's been no misses by any means, but some of it just hasn't hit me as hard as it's hit like the culture. I'll say that.
Nice. Okay.
Which projects are you talking about?
I think we'll get into them. Them throughout the episode. Yeah.
I was hoping you would slip up a little bit.
Listen, my defenses are up with these two every single week, so I gotta take any advantage I can.
I try to get to that every single week, George. I try to do a little dig here and there, and I always try to phrase it differently, and it never works. These guys are on their toes.
I was hoping he would throw me a bone since I'm a guest or something. Like, I feel bad for this guy.
Ben's just an asshole. Don't worry about it. He gives no information to nobody. George, what about you? You are deemed as kind of the Chris Nolan guy. Seth let me know on Twitter that I should not have invited you on for this pod because you're never going to shut up about Nolan.
No, I'm excited. This was the episode I got invited for, but no, I love Chris. I always have. I always will. He's been my favorite filmmaker for as long as I remember. The first Nolan film I ever watched was actually The Dark Knight, so I had seen that before even watching Batman Begins, and ever since that fond memory of going to the theater with my mom to watch The Dark Knight, I've just been obsessed with him. Kind of for the same reasons Sophie said. I love how loud he is. I love how bold he is. He seems to just kind of push every genre that he touches forward. He's redefined the superhero genre. He redefined the science fiction genre heading into the 2010s. Even lately with Oppenheimer and the biopics, he's kind of just moving everything forward. And I think it's just beautiful to watch. He's just right there in my mind with like Denis and Spielberg as being like one of the most audacious filmmakers out there. I will be day one front row or row D to E anytime he releases a movie. He's just the best. I fucking love the guy.
Feels like we got you on the right pod then. I'm glad that you're here.
That is go on.
Yeah, The Dark Knight was also the first film that I saw from Christopher Nolan. I remember I saw it in my hometown, and we had one cinema, and this was back in 2008 when it came out, back when midnight releases were still a thing. And so everybody in high school is like, yo, new Batman movie, like let's go line up for the preceding 3 hours and throw a football around the parking lot of our cinema to kill the time until midnight. And then we got to watch The Dark Knight at midnight. And like that is a core movie memory of mine. And Christopher Nolan kind of like kicked that off, which is really exciting. Of course, saw Inception in theaters. And yeah, kind of started since then. I think I share much of the same opinion of you, George. I love that he's bold. I love that he's big. And I love that he's loud. And I think he's a very special, unique filmmaker in that capability. Okay, so we have 12 movies to go through here and to collaboratively rank. So there's kind of the dichotomy of the collaborative draft, right? Is the strategy to make a good board and to have a very nice looking, accurate 12 that sits well for the graphic, for Twitter, for Instagram? Or do you come to win? Do you come to see your favorites at the top of the list? I think we all bring a different energy. I know Ben brings his own particular energy. I'm going to pry one more time. Does anybody have any strategy? Okay, let me ask this actually real quick. How did we prep for this draft? I got a few rewatches under my belt. I saw Tenet in theaters, rewatched Oppie, did some due diligence. Anybody else partake on any rewatches gearing up for this?
Yeah, I got through 7 on the rewatch.
Wow.
7 movies. So yeah, I rewatched a majority of his stuff. The stuff I didn't rewatch is stuff I either felt pretty comfortable with, having seen it more than I want to, probably. So I didn't revisit those ones. But yeah, that was my homework.
Yeah,
It's hardcore.
Yeah, that is Ben. I'm impressed. I watched 2 films that I felt like mediocre on the first go around. So that was good. And
That was
you
good.
guys probably saw what they were. I'm now realizing I probably shouldn't have logged those. But that's kind of the only homework I did. I mean, I tried to stalk Letterboxd, of course, the usual.
Okay. You also texted Ben and I this morning, and you were like, I prepped for this draft for 2 hours last night, and you guys are so dusted. So that happened as well. George, did you do any rewatches going into this pod?
I've been doing Christopher Nolan homework my entire life. So
You were born
On
for
the
this.
round.
yeah, I'm ready to lie. I'm locked in. But no, I didn't do any rewatches for this pod, but I revisit a Nolan film every like 3-4 weeks. I feel I just recently rewatched Interstellar because I was kind of like going back and forth on where I wanted to place Oppie in my rankings. I don't know if that's too much information to give before the draft, but I've been doing a lot of rewatches just over the last couple of months with Oppie coming out because I just love to compare films.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it sounds like we all brought a different preparation energy to this draft, which I appreciate as well. That we didn't all bring the same idea. Okay, Ben, I'm gonna have you explain the draft. You created this draft. You created our picks and our vetoes and our abilities. So I'm gonna have you do the explaining because in true movie draft pod fashion, it's pretty chaotic.
It is pretty nuts. I'll go over it and everyone can just forget it. And then we'll keep track of like who needs to draft where. We'll just let you know. Drafter D is going to get picks 10, 7, and 5. It will get 1 veto. And because they just kind of have picks that are in the middle of the pack, they also get a veto override, which can be used to help someone else, not yourself. So if I'm drafter D and I get vetoed, I can't use the veto override to save myself. It has to be used for somebody else. Drafter C is going to get picks 12, 11, and 2. But so they're kind of going to do the bookend here because we only have 12 movies to pick from. They kind of get to pick number 1 as well, judging with what they choose for number 2. So they get 1 veto. Drafter B gets picks 9, 6, and 3 with 1 veto. Just some higher ranked picks, so they just get the 1 veto. And drafter A gets picks 8, 4, and 1. But again, 1's kind of going to be decided for them. So because of that, they get 2 vetoes to use on the draft.
Any initial thoughts anybody wants to spill about how we're feeling about how the drafters are set up?
No.
Wow. You just want to get into it. You just want to draft.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. I respect that. Okay. We of course have 12 movies to go through. Following from 1998, Memento, 2000, Insomnia, 2002, Batman Begins, 2005, The Prestige, 2006, The Dark Knight in 2008, Inception, 2010, Dark Knight Rises, 2012, Interstellar, 2014, Dunkirk, 2017, Tenet in 2020, and Oppenheimer in 2023. That is what our slate is. And it's going to mix and match, and we're going to end up with some form of that ranked list at the end of this podcast. Ben, let's just get the wheel going. Whoever is spun first on the wheel will get the pleasure of choosing which drafter they want to be. That proceeds all the way until the last person is drawn, and of course, they will get the last spot that is not claimed previously.
All right, here we go.
Oh boy. This will be
the first
worst
time that I go first.
Nope. Jinx yourself.
Keep going.
No. Okay, whoa, close. Okay, landed on Ben.
I did not want to pick first, genuinely.
Wow. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was
Ooh.
close. It was close. Close between me and George. Ends up being me. Wow. Sophie going last would be so on brand. My God.
Funny. But as usual, we welcome our guests by letting them go last. So.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Shoot.
right.
Gosh.
What you
Ben.
picking, boys?
Yeah. Fuck it. I'm gonna bookend this. Let's go drafter C.
God damn it. That
Wow.
sucks for everybody in this draft. Let me
Let's
just
do
tell
it.
you right now, that's bad.
Really?
I like that he only has
Oh.
one veto, but
Now
Okay.
I'm rethinking my whole strategy because I thought that was easily the worst draft place.
Listen,
Well, when you don't like the Nolan movies that I don't like, you want to try to get him at the bottom.
Oh no. Now I'm nervous.
okay, so this puts me in a bit of a bind. Here's my thinking on this one. What Ben just stated makes me want 2 vetoes. There's only one spot with 2 vetoes because I know that there are movies that I want to fight for here on this board that I need to have at certain locations. But if I go with drafter A, I get spots 8, 4, and 1. Ben essentially picks the top movie for me, so it's the trade-off. But I think I'm gonna go with draft. Fuck, I have no idea. Honestly, I'm gonna go with drafter.
Do you want me to change mine?
No. I want you to keep it. I was kind of gunning for that spot. I thought it could be pretty beneficial. But I know you're gonna bring much more chaos to that. Okay, I'm gonna go 8, 4, and 1. I want the 2 vetoes.
yeah, good call.
I can't stay away from them. They're too enticing.
All right. I am going to go with drafter B because it feels safe.
I like that.
Okay.
I guess I don't have a choice.
Yep. But you
I
get
like the
that
veto
override.
no,
That's
yeah,
fun.
I'm gonna screw someone over.
The good news is you have to use your veto last. Like we'll go in order. So if a movie's gonna get vetoed, I have to say if I'm gonna use mine first, and then Ethan, and then Sophie, and then you. So you kind of get to hold on to your veto if you want to. Don't let Ethan persuade you into using it before him. So
Whoa.
just putting that out there.
I would never. Look, George is a guest. He's a lovely guest so far.
So
I'm not
far,
trying to
yeah.
persuade anything. I'm just having a conversation about good old Chris Nolan films over here.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
there's a lot of drafting animosity between Ben and
I know, right? It's coming through.
So Ben and I have partaken on this endeavor before. We have done a Christopher Nolan collaborative draft probably 6 months ago on our A24 pod, back when we were kind of fermenting on this idea of if a movie draft podcast. This has a much more different energy and dynamic than that one does. So I feel like I do have the advantage of knowing about where Ben is going to try to really twist the knife, and I'm not excited to live through those times. And they're coming. I know that they're coming. Okay, pick number 12. We're gonna start this collaborative draft. Ben, kick us off. Kick us off into madness.
Let's do an Oppenheimer. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, like following has to be at 12. This is like the most layup position out of all of these. Like, it's a fine movie. I've seen it like twice, and it's a student film. I don't know. Like, it's not that it's bad. It's just that everything got better after this, basically. I feel like there's one too many twists at the end. I don't know if you guys have all seen it or not, but it's just like, it felt like, all right, we got it. And it's like, oh, we're gonna do one more twist. Like, okay, let's do it. And then, so it's not super fantastic. And I think it just makes sense that it's here at the end. It's his least impressive film, but still better than anything I could make. But as far as when it comes to what we're measuring up against here, I feel like following just has to be at number 12. Does anyone want to veto me? Bump it up? Is anyone a big following fan?
No,
Where the
I
following
texted you
heads
guys. I texted you guys before this and said, like, do I really need to watch this? And y'all were like, eh.
Yeah, not really.
So
no,
I knew
no,
it was going to be
excuse
down
you.
there.
I said it is the
Oh,
only
yeah.
Christopher Nolan film that's in the Criterion Collection, if that's worth anything
You
to you.
did say
So
that.
That
You
is
did say
true.
that.
that does exist. Yeah, I'd be surprised if we put anything other than following here. I share much of Ben's sentiment. It's It's sick because you're like, oh, cool. Christopher Nolan has always thought like this forever. Like that's just how his brain operates. And that's a really cool thing to see transpiring over so many years and so many different styles and scopes of films. I'm proud of you, Ben. I'm proud of you.
I'm playing an honest game. I'm not trying to draw vetoes out of people. I want to make that clear before I give my 11th pick.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
I know that you're playing an honest game for one pick and then maybe not the rest.
I'll play honest the whole time. I played honest with us too. As much as I didn't love Oppenheimer at the time, I didn't play it at the bottom. So, all right. At number 11, I feel like Christopher Nolan has two beautiful disasters in his filmography that to me just like don't land, they don't work, but they are just like visually stunning to look at. And I rewatched one of them and actually played better than I expected. So at number 11, I'm going to play Interstellar.
What are we doing?
It's a beautiful movie. It is a beautiful movie. It's got a fantastic score, but that ending is the wettest of wet farts that I've ever seen in a movie. It is so dumb. Like it is just, it ruins the whole movie for me. I can't stand it. Like I don't rewatch it because of that ending. I think almost all of his other movies are more coherent and tell a better story. This one just like, it's never worked for me as a story. It is beautiful. It sounds great, but that's just kind of it for me. So I'm throwing out there Interstellar at 11.
I feel like some people are pretty stressed with this pick.
I saw Whites of Eyes that I have not seen yet. So yeah, I don't know how this is received, but
well, I'm most curious about George. I'm curious where George is on Interstellar.
So how do the vetoes work right now? So someone give me a
see, this is what I was talking about with Ethan. This is what I was talking about.
So it's Ethan's choice right now if he wants the veto, and then if
Ethan has to decide
veto,
first, and then Sophie will decide if she wants to use hers, and then you can wait till the end.
You just broke my heart, Ben.
I'm sorry. We started off so strong. It was a really solid 15 minutes. Here we are.
Well,
once this is over, I'll be happy to show you my letterbox list that this is legit. This isn't me like doing a bit.
Since I'm up first for the veto pick here, I'm not going to veto. I rewatched Interstellar going into this, and I think it's got merit, and I think there are some good things there. While I don't necessarily have the same strong descriptors that you do, Ben, I do think the ending is Christopher Nolan maybe at his worst and being like, hey, I did something really cool. Now let me like explain that really cool thing to you for 30 minutes and why it's cool. It just doesn't work for me pretty much at all. It's got the scenes, it's got the score, it's got the scope, it's got the visuals, it's got Anne Hathaway, and that's my girl, and it's just not for me. Out of the entire filmography, like that's just not for me. So I'm not gonna veto it. So we'll move the conversation downwards to Sophie, who
right.
well, I think out of all of us is the only person that had a visceral, audible reaction to that, that nomination.
I'm just
I felt
shocked.
the daggers being shot at me through the screen across the country.
Yeah, I guess I'm not shocked because there are a lot of like, I feel like Interstellar is one of his movies that people like, I see people poke at the most, especially online, like poke holes in it. And I understand, like, I do think that it's Nolan being like very sentimental and very like over explaining things. But I kind of love it. Like I love this, like him being like super emotional, and I love the family drama aspect of this movie. I mean, Matthew McConaughey crying, cornfield chase, like come on. It's just like, I think it's a guilty pleasure movie for me. Like I feel like every criticism I've ever heard, I'm like, yeah, like I get that. Like I really do. it just like really works for me. I think it does lose me a little bit in like the Anne Hathaway, Matt Damon stuff, but like the family aspect of it, I just really love a lot. I'm not gonna veto it because there's movies that I care more about, but I understand. But wow, Ben, you're gonna like, this is worse than me putting Pulp Fiction at 6. Like, you're gonna get some hate on the internet.
I just hope you get it for not using a veto, like I got it for not using a veto on Pulp Fiction. It was not my fault. George, they're putting it all on you, dude.
I know. The annoying thing is I'm also not gonna use my veto here because there are a couple of Nolan films I care more about that I'd rather see higher in the draft than Interstellar, but I will always be an Interstellar defender. I have not succumbed to the revisionist history this movie has gone through over the last couple of years. It is my favorite theater experience ever, going with a group of my high school friends, just like collectively having our minds blown. And it's a movie I could just rewatch endlessly and just feel all the emotions and the weight of it every single time. So it breaks my heart to not use the veto, but again, there are other Nolan films I'd like to see higher on this draft, so I'm going to save that veto.
I'm just glad we can all agree this is his second worst film. So we're all in this together now. So that's fantastic.
The guy who comes into every collab draft and is like, I'm going to win, is now the one spraying this propaganda. That's like, wow, good thing we're a team. This
I just have to sit back for 9 picks now. I'm just hanging out. So.
Oh my gosh.
I do think it's quite ironic that probably Nolan's most emotionally charged, probably like most authentic film in that nature is the one where most of us are being cold-blooded, and we're just like, well, there's other stuff out there. Tough beat for that guy. So Interstellar stays at 11. God, wild times that we're already living in here. George, that brings us to you for pick number 10.
Yeah. Now I'm like rethinking my strategy. Do I just play it friendly with you guys, or do I like pick Oppenheimer here so I can bait Sophie into a veto?
No.
No, I'm not gonna be rude. I'm gonna take Insomnia at number 10. I for me personally, following and Insomnia are very clearly his bottom 2 movies. They're just the 2 movies I don't feel myself or find myself rewatching as much as anything else in his filmography. It's not a bad movie by any means. I will defend Chris Nolan with my life. Insomnia is still a 3.5 out of 5 for me, if that tells you anything, and it's number 11 on my ranking. But it's too early Nolan, and he's done everything better since that movie. So it's like, why would I watch Insomnia when he's done The Prestige, the Dark Knight trilogy, a couple of science fiction pictures? I do like Insomnia though, but I'm going to toss that one at number 10.
I think Insomnia kind of rips, honestly. I think it's a pretty good movie. Al Pacino dials it to 11 in a couple scenes, which is just classic, iconic Al Pacino. I do really respect that you get the Chris Nolan, like, the visual juxtaposition of like, let's have a thriller that takes place in a setting where the sun never goes down. I think that's really intriguing. And I think it works really well with Pacino and Robin Williams, like in those roles. Actually, I think this is the only time he's attempted a remake of something, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's really fascinating. And I know the more we go through this, we'll talk about Christopher Nolan's career, which is really fascinating. The more that you look at it and the more that you see what he finds interesting and the things that he attaches himself to. I think it's a pretty good movie, but in terms of Christopher Nolan, I'm with you on this one, George. I think it's bottom of the barrel here. But again, that says a lot about this filmography that we're dealing with here, because if someone else puts out this movie, you're like, that was a really good thriller. Just not the case with Christopher Nolan. I'm not going to veto it, is what I'm trying to say. I'm good with that.
Just sitting on it. Insomnia is my number 3. I love Insomnia so much.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think it's a great film. I love serious Robin Williams. I think he's fantastic. I think this is also possibly kind of a when you came to this movie thing. Like you know what I mean? Like when you are able to experience his whole filmography, I sat with this one for a little while, and I really enjoy this movie. But I'm not going to veto it because I feel like I'm on the outs on that, and if anything, it just like might go up a spot or something like that. So I understand all those criticisms, and again, we're dealing with someone like you said, George, like your 11th favorite is still 3.5 stars. Like it's not a bad movie. It's just like he's gotten so good at everything that he does. So I'm not super stoked about it, but you know, here we are.
Nice.
So, Sophie, you gonna save this one?
No, I'm not. I am not going to veto this. Yeah, I don't have much to add, honestly. I feel very similarly to Ethan. I do think it's really crazy. Like sometimes I forget that Christopher Nolan and Al Pacino have worked together. Like that's just, I don't know. That's just so cool. But yeah, that's kind of all I think about when I think about this movie. Like it's just, to me, it's just like early Nolan. Like I watched it once and I don't know if I'll revisit it, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing to say more on my end either. I think we're all pretty happy with that. Insomnia number 10. Okay. We continue to be a team and we continue to play nice with each other, and we shall see if it continues into pick number 9.
Okay. This will come at no surprise to any of you that at number 9, I am going to nominate the film The Dark Knight Rises, because I'm just not a fan of Nolan's Batman trilogy. I'll say it. I think The Dark Knight is cool, but the other two movies, I just like, they're just not for me. And in all honesty, like I just didn't want to revisit them for this because I've watched them once. I know I didn't enjoy them. And even George will and friends will tell me like, yeah, that's just not like a movie you would enjoy. So yeah, The Dark Knight Rises. I don't really have much to say about it. I just know I don't like it.
It's a movie where I wonder what could have been made, obviously, if Heath was still around. Mm-hmm. Like I wonder what it would have been. It felt like obviously something that had to adjust because of that. I think it's a okay, like fine standalone film. I think it does a pretty good job of wrapping up the trilogy. But yeah, it's like out of the trilogy, I think it's the least, of the trilogy. So it makes sense that it's down here on the bottom above Interstellar.
No need for that stray.
Just catching strays out here.
No.
I'm good. I'm good with it here. Dark Knight Rises. Every time that I think about it, I feel like you, Sophie, where I'm just like, I don't really want to revisit it. Like I'm good just being like, oh yeah, that's a movie, and like Bane's in it, and like there's some cool stuff. I ironically enough had a massive like canvas poster of the standoff that Bane has with all of his cronies and Batman and the civilians across the entirety of the length of my room. It was probably like 12 feet long. It was fucking sick when I was 14 years old. It was really cool. Now, not so much. I get really sad because I don't think Anne Hathaway deserved the unfortunate role of her character in this. I wanted so much more for her, and I think she looks stunning as Catwoman, and I think she's great playing across Christian Bale and is great for Batman in general, but it just like doesn't work at all. And I don't know. It's a long movie that I personally have a lot of problems with, and I think it's easily the weakest of the Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
You're not getting a veto out of me either. I love the Dark Knight trilogy so much, but the Dark Knight Rises is where I can like accept its faults. It's, I think, the sloppiest script Nolan has ever worked with, and in the hands of like any other filmmaker, this could have been like the worst movie of all time. Also, just coming from someone who just reads so many Batman graphic novels, it is just one of the worst adaptations from the graphic novels. It just strays from a lot of like the familiar beats that you'll see in these graphic novels, and it just feels like as much as I love Tom Hardy and Bane, this version of Bane just feels very different than anything we've seen, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing when it comes to this iteration of him. I actually have this ranked at number 10, so number 9 is higher. So I'm not upset about that. I'll give Batman all the love he wants, and I'll still defend this movie. I will always defend this movie, but it's understandable. If you had put this at 12, I would have been like, yeah, sure, makes sense.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dark Knight Rises at 9. Wow, very, very interesting draft so far, in my opinion. I think this is where the rubber meets the road. Is where we're headed. 8 and above. I'm gonna nominate a movie where I genuinely don't know how other people feel, and I'm curious to see where this sits. This is one of the movies that I did rewatch for this draft. It has merits, but like it just doesn't work for me personally. It doesn't click with me. I'm going to nominate Dunkirk at number 8. A pretty cool movie, and I think a pretty cool theatrical experience for sure. A great kind of Nolan take on war and this kind of segmented time and the narratives that we get. Of course, I think the only time that he works with Mark Rylance, which is just like we need that to happen more often because I think he's actually astounding in this film. We get lots of interesting casting choices like Harry Styles. We also get Barry Keoghan in this movie. And I don't know. I think it's okay. And that's kind of that. So I'm going to nominate Dunkirk at number 8.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, you know. We're getting to good movies now that are like middle of the road. I don't know. This is a really good movie. The sound is fantastic. What they were able to achieve on this, I thought it was really cool form of storytelling going between the 3 different like time frames. But yeah, again, like we're dealing with a master here, so it's just like, what do? You got to start killing your darlings, I guess. I personally have 2 other darlings I would kill before this, but yeah, Dunkirk, I had it at 6. It's not like super far off from 8, so I get it.
Yeah, I also have Dunkirk at 6, Ben. What a coincidence.
Well, we agree on something?
Come on.
Holy shit.
That's collusion right there.
Holy shit.
But I think I liked this movie a lot more on rewatch. I think the structure is like a little bit hard to take in at first, but then once I was like very aware of that, it was more enjoyable. I think a war film was kind of like a natural progression thing for Nolan. Like it just made sense that he would make one. And it's really well made and it's good. But yeah, it's sitting in the middle of my list, so I'm not going to veto it.
I love Dunkirk. This kind of felt like Nolan just flipping off his entire audience and saying, yeah, you didn't think I could do a war film? Well, I absolutely can. I think this is my favorite of his films in terms of sound design. Now Oppenheimer is probably that number 1 spot, but I so vividly remembered my theater experience with Dunkirk just being blown away, figuratively and literally. I think it's just such a real and raw take on this genre that we just don't see a lot of anymore, and maybe that helps elevate it in my mind. With that said, it is my 8th ranked Nolan. So I think this is the perfect spot for it, regardless. Even though I love it so much, again, that just kind of shows you how much I love this man and his films. So really good spot for Dunkirk.
Do you think Nolan will ever go back and do another war movie like this? Do you think he'll ever revisit a period war movie?
No, I don't think Nolan will ever touch war or the comic book genre ever again.
Yeah, he put in his time essentially and has moved forward.
It just felt, I especially in the case of Dunkirk, it just felt very experimental. I think it just kind of felt like Nolan kind of just seeing if he could do it and how it would resonate with audiences. But I think especially after this run of Tenet and Oppenheimer that he's going through, I think he's trying to make these significantly more immersive science fiction-y experiences, thrillers, mysteries. But I don't expect him to ever touch superheroes again. Maybe he will make a war film again. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I feel like he showed he could do it. He proved himself he could do it. So it's like, let's let's keep pushing it with something else. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. God, fuck. Okay. Can I just ask a blanket question? When do things get hard? I feel like we're in pretty good territory here. This is surprising to me.
It's almost halfway. No veto's been used.
Yeah, wow.
I probably shouldn't have asked that out loud because this is probably when things go off the hinge and I start to lose my grips on reality. George, you are number 7. You're gonna bring us into the top half of the draft here.
Yeah, I am number 7. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about this pick because the movie I want to pick, I know people that have this in Nolan's top 2, but I also know people that have this in like Nolan's bottom 3. So I think it's one of his more polarizing films, and that's going to be Memento.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think. Did you guys think I was going to go with Tenet there? But no, I'm going to go with Memento. This is, I think this kind of like kickstarts Nolan's career into overdrive where he kind of really finds himself. And I think it's still a fucking brilliant movie. I think it's one of the better screenplays he's had the pleasure of playing around with. And I don't think there are many filmmakers who can tackle this nonlinear storytelling the way Nolan did. With that said, there are just other things within Nolan's filmography that I'm significantly more attracted to. So it's one of the films I just find myself revisiting the least, except for maybe Insomnia and Following and even The Dark Knight Rises. So again, there's no like hate towards Memento. It is still a 4.5 out of 5-star movie for me. I really, really love this movie, as I do most of Nolan's filmography, but there are other things within his filmography that I just find myself, pulling back to.
I know that I'm wrong in this, but I do consider this kind of his directorial debut because this feels like his first real feature film. And I think it's fucking astounding what he was able to pull off, even as it technically being a second film. But like, I have my feelings about like student film stuff counting like that. So this movie's amazing. This was one that I revisited and I was really glad that I did. Some just fantastic performances, and it's, I don't know. It's a solid film for such an early entry into someone's filmography. But yeah, like we've continued to say, he just keeps getting better. So it makes sense to have some of his earlier stuff on the lower half.
Except Interstellar.
I wasn't going to say it.
But it does.
I wasn't going to say it. I was trying to hold back.
Yeah, I honestly have nothing to add, Ben. I think you said it really well. Like, it's cool. Like, I really, I revisited this film today, actually. And like the structure is so unique. It's so cool, like watching that movie and then just reflecting on like what he went on to do. Like, it just makes so much sense that is where he started. But I just like don't have a ton of fun watching it. Like, I don't know, something about the structure, like just I find it like more like amusing than I do like entertaining, I guess. But yeah, I think this is the perfect spot for it.
It's a pretty jarring film for sure. I think through most of the film itself, I like you, George. I have it 4.5 stars. I love this movie probably more than most. I remember watching this when I was way too young to understand like the narrative structure and what is happening, and now that I watch it as an adult, I'm definitely hit with like, wow, that was like a movie way above my concept level that I watched at that age. This movie is so like full bodied in what it attempts to do and what it succeeds in doing. And I think Guy Pearce is really, really interesting, to say the least, in a role like this. And the whole idea of Memento is just truly riveting to me and really fascinating. Joe Pantoliano in this movie is incredible. Truly the best of the best at being a scumbag cop. And he does it in several other films. And it's great to see him do it here as well. So yeah, this is a great movie. I'm not going to veto it. I'm okay at 7. I personally have it higher, but I feel like now we're getting to the 6, and this is where things are going to start duking out. And I gotta be careful, and I gotta be cautious of what's up ahead.
I love how much you focus on like I need to get all these vetoes. I got to have the most vetoes, and then you just like sit on them the whole time. Like I never know when I'm going to need it. Like,
Listen,
sounds like you might need it.
I know what's coming down the road. Okay, I know how I feel, and I feel
like at least one of you is going to regret not vetoing Interstellar by the time we're done here. There's no way we're getting through all of our vetoes. Like,
yeah.
I knew it then, and I didn't want to say anything. It was like, one of you is going to regret not doing this, but that's fine.
I'm honestly so excited to see the reactions to this graphic on Twitter when Interstellar
right?
is at number 11.
We all blame Sophie
that'll be
for not
worth it.
vetoing it.
Hey,
and we're losing
Sophie's
listeners
fault.
left and right because of you guys. Honestly, this is terrible. Sophie, you have got pick number 6.
yes, I do. And I don't know how it worked out this way that like I'm picking all the films in the Batman trilogy. It's kind of boring for me because I don't really want to talk about them.
You don't have
but
to.
I'm gonna.
You
Thanks,
could pick
Ben.
something else.
Thank
know?
you. No, it's okay. I'm nominating Batman Begins for the same reasons as The Dark Knight Rises. I just did not enjoy this trilogy. I prefer my superhero films a little bit more campy, a little less dark. And that's all I can really say.
Okay. Cool. More camp, less dark. I like it.
More colorful.
I watched Batman Begins last night, and I texted Ben, and I was like, "Yo, Batman Begins, like, kind of a great movie. Way better than I recall it being, for sure. I think it's got some problems, definitely, but I think as much to the difference of you, Sophie, I think the introduction of like, we're dark, we're serious, this is how it is. I think the like psychotic visuals of Cillian Murphy and like his whole gas thing that we're dealing with, and we get like this dark Batman and we get a dark Scarecrow. I love that, and I think that is really, really fun stuff. Better than I remember, but that's all I've got to add to the conversation.
I mean, I'm with you. Given my upbringing of like leaving Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, I love Batman Forever, by the way, but it's like talking about campy, and then we jump to Batman Begins. I'm like, okay, this is real Batman shit. Like, I like this a lot. I think it's one of the best origin stories out there. Liam Neeson, like that reveal, I think still works really well. Like, I love it.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm into this movie, but I don't have 2 vetoes like Ethan, so I'm just gonna sit on it because there's movies I like better. So I'm just gonna wait. So yeah.
What are you gonna veto down the road, Ben? What are you running out of picks?
We'll see.
God,
I don't kind of love Batman Begins. I definitely love Batman Begins. Sophie and I will forever disagree on superhero movies because I love the dark and the gritty significantly more than the campy. It's like a big reason why I've kind of been more attracted to like the DCEU and Zack Snyder's Justice League over like Infinity War and Endgame lately. But same thing Ben said. I think this is just one of the most beautiful origin stories in comic book filmmaking that we've ever seen. It's Batman Year One, Ego and Other Tales, just brought to the big screen in just like the best way I could have ever imagined. It's also another example, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, where Nolan is just redefining an entire genre. He's kind of pushing the boundaries of what was able to be done within the comic book universe. And I just kind of love to watch that just complete divide in comic book filmmaking history. With that said, it is my 6th ranked Nolan film, so I think this is a perfect placement for it, so I'm not upset.
What a tease.
Wow, this is
I was
just,
waiting for the veto to come.
Yeah,
Like, dude, you got the override. No one can stop you. You can make this happen.
Everything's lining up perfectly so far, except for Interstellar.
No, I know.
of course.
This is like perfect for George right
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
I'm honestly
Can't believe
upset. I wanted to fight with you guys.
Well, don't speak too soon. It might be coming.
I know. I'm waiting. I know.
I will say, when I did rewatch it last night, going back and visiting something like that was filmed and made almost 20 years ago, was Nolan in a very different headspace, creative space than he is today. The ending of that film, when Wayne Manor burns down and Bruce says that he's going to rebuild it brick by brick, I I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, Christopher Nolan, you sick son of a bitch. Like, you're rebuilding comic book movies. You know it. We know it. And like, you did it to whatever extent you want to say that is with The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. And like, he knew the journey that he was about to embark on with this trilogy, and he did not shy away from that. And I really respected that in Batman Begins. Pretty cool movie. Pretty cool Batman movie.
It's like Tarantino dropping the line, I think this just might be my masterpiece, and Inglourious Basterds. It's like their ego is through the roof, but that's so well deserved.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, like you're a scumbag for saying it, but you're not wrong.
Wow. Okay, that brings us to the top 5. Nobody's used any ability yet.
This is wild.
This is really, really subdued podcasting, to be honest with everybody here. This is not what we're hoping for. George, give us number 5, man.
I'm going to continue with being friendly. I'm not here to ruin anyone's day. My number 5 is going to be Tenet. I am kicking myself for missing the re-release in IMAX a couple of weeks ago. Because it just seems like everyone just had such a blast, and I did not ever get to watch this movie in theaters when it had released. I've only seen this movie twice, and I'm pretty sure it's one of those Nolan films where I do think it'll climb my rankings the more I watch it. I just think I'm not the smartest person in the room to fully grasp its, conceptual boldness right now, which I think just holds it back a tiny bit. I have it 7th in my ranking, though, so it's still a highly rated Nolan film for me. I love Pattinson and John David Washington in this film. I think this is just one of the best rom-coms out there with the two of them in the lead roles. I think they're beautiful together. But it's definitely one of the Nolan films where I just need to rewatch it. I really need to let my thoughts sit before I really place it in my rankings and solidify it. I have it at my 7th spot, but I don't even have a rating for it on Letterboxd because I just think that'd be very disingenuous to my experience with the film. So that's my number 5 right now.
Do we want to continue this conversation about Tenet because it's going to get vetoed? So do we want to save it, or do we want to do it now?
Is it going to get vetoed? Who's vetoing?
Fuck yeah, I'm vetoing it, George. I'm not having it at 5.
And I was gonna. If Ethan did it, I was gonna.
Oh wow!
I was with you, George.
Listen,
it's my number 10.
Here's the thing. I did have the chance to revisit it in IMAX just a few days ago. I was already on the Tenet train. I went to go see it in the height of the pandemic. I found a theater that was open, that was safe, that I could see it in. Revisiting it in IMAX further solidified it is beyond just any movie that I've seen. There's just nothing like it. And if we're going to save the conversation, then I'll save it because I'm not having it at number 5. I think that is insane. So I'm glad things spiced up a little bit. I'm glad we're getting a little dirty with our hands.
Yeah, I'm honestly happy someone threw out a veto. I was waiting for it. So I get to pick another one now, right?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
The only reason I was going to use my veto is because I have Tenet in my 5th spot, but I know what your top 3 is, George, and it's the same as mine. So I had to use it,
That's fair. Different order, but the same top 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well then with my second 5th pick, I'm going to go with, also let me make it clear, now excluding Tenet, the remaining 5 Nolan films for me are all 5 out of 5s. So I just adore all of these films. So whether they get vetoed or not, I'm not going to be upset no matter what order the rest place in. My now 5th pick, I'm going to take The Prestige. I love this movie. This is one of the movies where I just have such fond memories from college, bonding over it with my college roommates because it is also their just favorite films ever. So we rewatched this movie in college. Just, I swear, every 2-3 weeks. That's how often we were rewatching this film. And I just have such blissful memories of a better time in my life watching The Prestige on a college couch with my friends with no responsibilities. But on top of that, again, I think Nolan just excels entirely in his storytelling and his complicated views of I guess, magicians in this case. Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale in the leads, I think, are just breathtaking. I think both of them were criminally snubbed of Oscar nominations that year, which up until this year, I guess, seems to be the theme within Nolan films and acting performances. So yeah, I'll go with The Prestige now at my number 5 spot.
I'll veto it. Sure.
No way.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming. I was
Holy.
waiting.
You let me
waiting.
rant like that for a veto?
It was beautiful.
No
It was beautiful.
way.
I don't want to stop you.
So George has gone on 2 monologues now, only to be like, I don't fucking care. Next movie,
okay.
please.
So let me do this. Don't even let me rant. Sophie, use your veto because my next pick is Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll veto
Sorry.
that.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, great. So I've used 1 veto. Ben has now used his single veto, and Sophie has used her single veto as well. I believe this is the first time anybody has had to move on to a 4th pick for a single slot. I'm just going to put that out there.
We knew it was going to get bloody at the top. Like we knew. We
I
saved
didn't
them
know.
for a reason.
I can't believe Ben just let me rant for 5 minutes.
It was beautiful. I loved everything you were saying. I was like, yeah, this is why I want to veto it, because all these great things you're saying.
That's fair. Okay. Fuck me. So my next 5th pick is Inception.
Wow.
Okay.
Is anyone gonna veto that before I start ranting?
Ethan's the only one left. He's the only one.
Yeah. So I'm the only one with a veto power. Let's talk about this for a quick second. Because if I veto Inception, let's just game this real fast. That leaves 1 single movie on the board. That movie being The Dark Knight.
And I'll walk off this podcast immediately.
How insane would that be, though? That would be something
Ethan,
crazy.
Please.
Just saying. I mean, we had a pretty tame we had a pretty tame 6.
Yeah, we went from no vetoes for 6 picks and now 3 straight vetoes.
Shit. Oh man, at number 5. Yeah, I love Inception.
So
Do I love Inception? Do I love Inception more than The Dark Knight though? I mean, come on, guys. That's Sophie trying to get me to use my other veto? Nah, we gotta.
Yes.
I gotta protect that. I gotta protect the top 3 up here. I gotta
How do I
protect some
remove
other
Sophie from
movies.
the screen here? I need her influence to be turned off.
No,
This one to 100 really fast.
I'm not gonna veto it, George. You can play Inception in this 5 spot. Although at my core, I disagree with this. The way the game's shaking now, I have to let things play.
Yeah, again, I'm not necessarily upset because I think everything in Nolan's top 5 I just love so much. I think I, of course, love my top 2 more than the rest of them, and Inception is at the number 2 spot. So I'm not necessarily like frustrated, crazy being vetoed 3 times. Thank you for welcoming me to your podcast. That was nuts.
Pleasure.
I would have liked to see Inception higher, but it is what it is.
I love Inception. Yeah, honestly, I kind of forgot Tenet was off the board when I vetoed Prestige, so that's on me. I probably shouldn't have kicked all this off by vetoing Prestige. I was like, yeah, play Tenet. I forgot you vetoed it. So anyways, Inception is also my number 2. I love this movie so much. This for me is my favorite theater experience. I got to see it in a theater with just one other person who was like 3 rows behind me, just me and this dude, on like middle of the day on a Friday. And we had this whole theater ourselves, and it was fucking amazing. It was just like the coolest experience I've ever had. I still think about it now, with Cobb standing there and all the water like rushing in on the sides. Just like, I'd never seen anything like it before. I love this movie. I think it's perfect. It's a 5-star movie for me as well. But, you know, again, here we are. Some of us screw up and we veto things that we shouldn't have, and it ends up with Inception at 5. But it's on the list. It's top 5. It's good.
Yeah, Inception is my number 2 Nolan film as well. So yeah, this list really isn't reflective of our true thoughts about Inception. But like I said before, Inception was the first Nolan film I ever saw. It was my favorite movie for years. I feel like it was one of the first like science fiction films that I watched that felt like it could be real. Like it wasn't like an alien type of situation. Like, you know, aliens could be real too, but you know what I mean? Like it felt like attainable almost. There's no like crazy technology. Like they're literally just walking around with their shiny briefcases and messing around. There's a lot of like, holy shit, how did they do that moments that really just got me as a kid. I love Cillian Murphy in this movie. It was my intro to Leo, I think, as well. So those two performances are just really special to me. Yeah, I think it's a perfect movie. 5 stars. I would have liked to see it much higher, but it is what it is.
Seems like we all would have liked to see it higher.
Yeah. Okay. So what went wrong? What did we? How did we mess this up? I wanted it higher too, guys. I mean, come on. We're all in this together. We're a team.
We don't have to dwell on it. We can keep going.
I think Inception fucking rocks. And much like you, Sophie, I think it was like the first sci-fi movie where I was just like, oh shit, like this is close enough to reality where it could happen. And this seems like something that could be real. I love Leo in this movie. I love the visuals in this movie. I think Michelle Williams just is very good at playing messed up wives that people don't respect, and this is a great shout out there. I think it is both the silliest thing and the coolest thing that we get this theory of the names of everybody and what it means and the letters and like this whole kind of lore that goes behind Inception, which I think is actually really cool. I listen to the score all the time. I think the score fucking rips. And man, too bad we got it at 5. Tough world that we're living in here. Would anybody do it? Would anybody do that job? Be an Inception person and go plant a memory in someone's head?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what if you guys die? You could die.
That's a cool way to go.
Yeah.
That's cool, actually. Yeah. Here lies George Carmi. He died planting a memory in someone's brain.
Died in someone's mind? Sure.
That's sick. That's true. Oh, wow. Inception at 5. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It feels like I kind of run the board right now, and I feel really fucking good about it. I've got the next pick. I've still got a veto. George, you still have a veto and a veto override.
I feel like I have a lot of power right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Got a little power juxtaposition here. I'm interested to see what takes place next. We have The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Tenet, and Oppenheimer left here on this board. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna nominate The Prestige at number 4. A movie that I think is really excellent. Not quite a 5-star movie for me personally. Magic, very cool. David Bowie, pretty good. And hats, big, very cool fashion item. I know that George already gave his thoughts on The Prestige. Ben, I know Prestige is pretty high for you.
Yeah, I would like to convince George to use his veto here. I think we need Tenet at 4, not The Prestige.
It's not happening. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I didn't think it was.
I'm waiting for one very specific situation to use my veto.
Oh my gosh.
What's it going to be though? That's what I'm so curious about. I think you need to keep your veto override. I think that's what you got to be ready for.
No. Just stick to your guns, George. Don't listen to this guy.
Stop.
Relax.
We can play this out if we want. Sophie's not playing Oppenheimer at number 3, so you know it's going to end up there.
Venmo me 50 right now, and I'll use my veto.
Whoa!
We'll call it good.
First time on the pod. We've got to nip that in the bud. No under the table dealings. No Venmo dealings. Wow.
That was clearly over the table, so that's allowed. So that's totally fine. I don't know. I love The Prestige. I think it's great. This was probably my favorite rewatch. I think it's awesome seeing Jackman and Bale go back and forth. One of my favorite parts of all Nolan movies, whenever he shows up, is Michael Caine, and I think he's great in this as well. Maybe one of his best performances. ScarJo's like good, just kind of weird. Just kind of seems like it's out of nowhere a little bit, but I think she's good in it. But I don't know. I have nothing smart to say about this movie other than I just wish it was higher. But it's top 4. It's above Interstellar. So here we are. I love it.
Endless strays.
Endless.
The Prestige is one of the movies that I revisited for this episode, and I found that the rewatchability for me just wasn't great. I liked it less the second time around. I think it's really fun to like spend time with these magicians and like figure out in real time like the tricks and just figure everything out. But once you know, it's kind of less shocking, and it just gets a little bit repetitive for me. And ultimately, like, I love you boys, but I think like men just get turned on by rivalry, and I don't get it.
Fair enough. It's
Yeah,
a very
good
turned
take.
on movie, without a doubt.
Yeah. So I wish it was lower, honestly, but that's all right. Here we are.
Okay. We've arrived at the top 3. George has no more picks, but he's got a couple abilities in the pocket. We got Sophie at 3, Ben at 2, and I am at number 1. Sophie, you want to go ahead and do the honors for number 3?
Yeah. Number 3 is going to be The Dark Knight.
It's going to be
Any
a veto
vetoes
from me.
from the crowd?
It's definitely a veto from myself. I apologize.
Wow.
I love
Don't
it.
apologize.
That's too bad. That's too bad.
All right. So next up, we have Tenet. Shall I talk about Tenet? Is that okay with everyone?
It's really up to Ethan.
Yeah. No, I mean, okay. I'm not going to fucking put Oppenheimer at number 3, so we're talking about Tenet now.
Okay, great.
Unfortunately, I'd love Tenet at 2, but no, we're talking about it now.
Okay, cool. So I did get to revisit Tenet in theaters, and I did see it in theaters when it came out. I was living in my college town, and nobody was going to the movie theater, so my best friend and I went, and we were alone, and we had an absolute blast. I think Robert Pattinson is just fun to hang out with. He's the sexiest he's ever been in this film. I think this movie has some of my favorite Nolan set pieces, like the opera house and the plane crash. It's just so fun. Like this movie is just like maybe his like coolest movie. Just like scaling buildings and yachts. It's great. I love Tenet a lot. I wish it was at 2 as well, Ethan, but we got our favorite movie on the board still, so we got things to do.
Yeah. Tenet fucking rocks, and there's just like no other way to put it. It's it is like George said, it is an incredible rom-com between Robert Pattinson and John David Washington. I remember rewatching this thinking not only those things of like, wow, Christopher Nolan, how audacious of you to attempt something that you probably don't even understand yourself, but you're trying to get other people to understand. I think what popped into my head is like, how do we get John David Washington in more movies like this? I think this is where he needs to be. He's unfortunately made some pretty poor choices as of late. The Creator, not so great. Amsterdam, not good. And he's kind of trying to find his footing. And I just want what's best for him. And so I want him back in a movie like Tenet. Probably the hottest Robert Pattinson has ever looked in a movie. Truly insane. And same thing with Batman Begins. But it's like, when you watch Tenet and in the beginning, when they're like, don't try to understand it, just feel it. Every time I'm just like, I'm so in. I feel every moment of this film, and I don't need to try to understand anything more. And Christopher Nolan lets Elizabeth Debicki be both beautiful and tall, which is incredible. Not a lot of people let her do that. Tenet, incredible flick. Wish it was 2, but here we are. 3 is okay. I'll take top 3 for Tenet. I thought I was gonna have to fight for this going up the board. I didn't have to put any work at the office today. I feel good.
You did it.
We did it.
Yeah, you did it.
You like Tenet, Ben?
Okay. This is a fun movie to look at, but it's just really dumb. This feels like it's a 5-star theater experience and a 3-star at-home experience. I think it plays really well on a big screen, but it just doesn't make any sense. This is my number 10. This is me playing an honest game. I knew you guys loved it, and if I wanted to draw the vetoes out of you, I would have played it at 11, but I played an honest game because I respect you. I respect all of you so much.
You want like you want a prize for that? You want an award? Like,
I
congratulations, you played an honest game. What do you want from me?
I played an honest game. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's fun to look at. Like, I was bummed when it won the poll of like what I should rewatch on Twitter, and everybody voted for it. It's like, all right, I guess I have to rewatch this. So, yeah, I know. It's fine. It's cool.
That's really, I've been trying for years to get you on Team Tenet, and I just don't think you're ever coming on board.
I mean,
we
I
always
saw
have
when
space.
it came out.
We're always here for you.
I saw it at the drive-in, and I was like, that was fun to look at, but what is going on? Like, this is insane.
Okay. Well, we have Tenet at 3. Ben, you've got the number 2 pick. I've got the number 1 pick.
You do.
I've got a veto. George has a veto and a veto override. I don't know how valuable those things are as of now.
I only have the override. I use my veto.
Oh, right. Yes, you did use your veto. Okay, you've got the veto override. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. Ben, what are you putting in number 2?
I want to preface this to both of you by saying let's not let recency bias play anything into this. Let's really be objective here about what his greatest film is.
I'm very objective.
I'm so Team Ben right now. It's unbelievable.
And at number 2, I would like to play.
This is so stupid.
A really good film. His most recent film. It's a wonderful film, but it's not The Dark Knight. I want to play Oppenheimer here at number 2.
I would love to veto Oppenheimer at number 2.
I would love to veto override.
God damn it.
Okay, here we go.
We knew how this was shaking out.
We're back, George.
Yeah,
no,
we're back.
We lost, Sophie.
We lost.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
This is why I wanted this box. I was worried that these two would somehow get it to number 1.
And this reminds me of Step Brothers, where they're like, "Did we just become best friends?"
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
man.
we did. Yes, we did.
Aww.
I also feel like I'm surrounded by people who love this film more than I do and should speak on it probably more. But this is, I don't know how many times I've said it on this pod or other pods. On my first Letterboxd review, I said it's not for me, but I know it's going to win every single thing at the Academy Awards, and I stand by that. This movie is not for me, but it deserves to win every single award because it is a technical marvel. It's fantastic. It's a great movie. It's just not for me completely. So yeah, I'll let Oppen Mommy speak on this. I feel like we can clear the floor. We can step aside for half an hour and come back when she's wrapped up.
No, I mean, I knew how this was going to shake out. Oppenheimer, I believe, is Nolan's best film, but I just think it's his magnum opus, and it's a culmination of everything that he's worked for. It's about to sweep the Oscars for a reason. I think it's his best script by like a mile. I think it just has more to say than any of his other films in confronting ethics and morals, and I think it has real historical significance. But I'm also just a girl who loves history and who loves Cillian Murphy and loves a biopic, so this was just kind of a movie that was made for me. So I love it a lot. I'm really sad because I think The Dark Knight is really, 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 really overhyped, but that's okay.
Spoken like a true person that wants Oppenheimer at number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. We've done an Oppenheimer episode on 24 minutes of A24. We've done it with Sophie. So if you want to hear a deep, like almost 100 minutes of thoughts, go check out that episode for Oppenheimer. Here's what I will say about this. 2 things to mention really quickly. Ben, you chose Oppenheimer. I vetoed. George, you veto override. As soon as you veto override, my Audition crashed, and now my audio is going to be split between Audition and StreamYard. And that's on you guys. Bad things happen when you do things like that. Second thing is I have been pretty sick the last week. I've had to visit the doctor a couple of times. Yesterday, I went to go visit the doctor. He diagnosed me with colitis. My first response, wow, someone gets diagnosed with colitis in Oppenheimer. Crazy. that was where my brain went initially. That is how obsessed I am with Oppenheimer. I was not like, what does that mean? What does that mean for my colon? How am I going to do health-wise? I was like, yo, Oppenheimer, great flick. So I feel like that should be number one. I feel like that's good enough reason. Here we are at number two. I'm much like Sophie. I think it's his magnum opus. I think it is the best of the best, and he found exactly what he was trying to do and how he can do it the best. But alas, here we are at my number one pick that has been deemed and decided for me by Ben.
Well, does George have anything to say about Oppenheimer? Did you speak on it?
Oh, sorry, George.
Oh, no. I listen, I love Oppie. It's my number 3 Nolan film. I think it's the best. I think it's the second best movie we have this decade behind Dune Part 2. I'm very excited to watch this Oscar sweep. I think Nolan is just well overdue for an Oscar. It's kind of just like this beautiful, again, he's just pushing a genre forward. He's taking a biopic and he's turning it into this heart-pounding, almost psychological thriller. And I think it's beautiful to watch. Easily one of my favorite theater experiences of the last couple of years. I do really, really love this movie, and it did pain me to veto override you. I really feel bad about that, actually.
Yeah, right. I doubt it. I do not believe that at all.
with all that praise said, as good as Oppenheimer it is simply not as good as The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight for me is Oppenheimer for Sophie. It's just everything I am attracted to in filmmaking. It is my favorite character. It is my favorite fictional character ever written. It is just a beautiful, dark and gritty iteration of him, which I absolutely adore. And then you're kind of coupling it with my favorite filmmaker ever, who just has this incredibly ambitious lens that he always works with. And I really, really adore it. My favorite graphic novel is The Long Halloween, which is kind of where Nolan pulled a lot of inspiration from, including Year 2, which I also think is a really good graphic novel. So it's just everything I love about filmmaking and storytelling in one movie. But I'm happy that they're top 2. I think they deserve to be top 2.
I would say, look, George, if you're happy, I'm happy, and bust out an Oppenheimer quote on you, but I do not feel that way right now. Okay, number one pick. I've got to pick The Dark Knight at number 1. This is crazy because
how do you sound dejected saying that? That's insane to me.
No, well, this is my point.
I have to pick The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight is a 5-star film. The Dark Knight is perfect. I don't know what else to say about The Dark Knight. It formed everything that I know about not only comic book movies and Batman movies, but like movies in general. And I watched it at a very formidable age, and I think it is a perfect movie, and I do not think it is overhyped. I revisited it for this draft, and like 3 minutes into it, I was just like, fuck, this movie's so good. Like, how does Nolan do this? How did he do this with the opening scene and everything that we get in there? And I think it's crazy that like we're talking about so many 5-star movies in somebody's filmography, and that we're trying to decide between which one is 1, 2, and 3. And we're coming up with such a tough time. Dark Knight is great. It is a 5-star movie still. It is still perfect. It is still incredible. And it's still, is a societal metric. I think it changed the Oscars, right? Very famously, and is a societal metric of what's possible with a character like that. So The Dark Knight, number 1. That's where we're at.
Yeah, we are. I recently rewatched Brokeback Mountain for our Gyllenhaal draft. For those listening that want to go back and listen to our Gyllenhaal draft,
I think it actually comes out next week.
Comes out next week. Yeah, that's right. So stay tuned for that. But it was really interesting to see Heath Ledger in that film again, and then go back and revisit The Dark Knight and just like see how much transformation there was. Like it's not short on praise by any mean for what Heath Ledger did, but it is just astounding. Like having visited something that wasn't The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger in it. He's an amazing actor. He did a wonderful job. This film, it's like a comfort film for me, basically. Like you just throw it on at any time. I love it so much. I'm very, very happy here. This was my sole objective of this draft, was just to get this at number 1. So I'm very happy that it's here. I know it's not like a hot take or anything, but I knew I was up against a couple Oppie heads here. So I'm very glad that we were able to pull it off. Thank you, George, for your help with that. But yeah, this movie, it's perfect. It's like, it's the best, you know?
Is it,
Sophie,
though?
let's hear your praise. Let's hear your praise. How are we closing on Sophie talking about the Dark Knight? How did this work out this way? What the hell?
Yeah, I don't think that the Dark Knight is perfect, and I love giving George a hard time about that. But I do just think that it's a once in a generation performance inside of like a good movie. Like it's a good movie. I just like I leave the movie thinking about Heath Ledger and nothing else. I think it has one of the most memorable like opening scenes in movie history, and I think yeah, I mean, I leave thinking about Heath Ledger, and like that's kind of all. I think the Batman trilogy as a whole, just like Christian Bale, is really forgettable to me, which I know is like a blasphemous take for some people, but yeah, the Dark Knight's fine.
I want you guys to know there was a screening of Oppie that Sophie and I went to, and the first thing she says, I think this was like our third watch for both of us, and we walk out of the theater. The first thing she says to me is, "You don't actually think that's the Dark Knight is better than this movie, right?" I just looked at her. I was like, there was no need to make that comment.
That's brutal. That's brutal. I think we should end every single draft with bad takes from now on. I think that's a great way to go out.
I mean, we started this draft with a bad take with Interstellar at 11.
We're just doing justice here. Okay. Well, we've completed our Nolan collab draft. Here's how things shook out. In number 12, we had Following, chosen by Ben. Number 11, Interstellar, also chosen by Ben. Number 10.
And supported by everyone else on this draft who chose not to veto it. I just want to clarify here. I may have nominated it, but no one vetoed it. So there we go.
Number 10, Insomnia, chosen by George. Number 9, The Dark Knight Rises, chosen by Sophie. Number 8, Dunkirk, chosen by myself. Number 7, Memento, chosen by George. Number 6, Batman Begins, chosen by Sophie. Number 5, Inception, chosen by George after being vetoed, I believe, 3 times, that's history right there. That's history, you understand?
Did it, George.
Number 4, The Prestige, chosen by myself. Number 3, Tenet, chosen by Sophie. Number 2, Oppenheimer, chosen by Ben. And number 1, The Dark Knight, chosen by myself. How do you guys feel about how the draft shook out? I feel like George and Ben are pretty stoked right now.
I'm very stoked. Yeah. I'm happy with it.
I like it. I mean, of course, outside of Interstellar, but I feel like everything like in the middle portion is like where I kind of would have put it. The top 5, 6 is pretty much my top 5, 6, just in a slightly different order. So I'm happy with this.
Would any of you have gone back and vetoed Interstellar now, looking back on it?
No, I'm happy I saved my veto for The Dark Knight at number 3.
I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
But Oppenheimer is like my one and only. I feel like I had to save it.
Makes sense.
Well, I went into the 4th pick, and I definitely remember saying, I feel like I own this board, and then I just got blown out of the water by you guys. So I'm never going to say those words again. That was terrible. Bad idea. God, okay. We have done it. We have collectively and collaboratively ranked Christopher Nolan films. Probably just going to go rewatch Oppenheimer to celebrate, as we all should, I feel like. Oppenheimer Watch Along pod when? Maybe next month. We should do that. Huge thank you to George joining us on the pod. George, if people want to find you, where can they find more of you?
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. This was fun. You guys can find me all over Twitter, Instagram, George Carmi, TikTok, Movies and Stuff 14. Real Talk Podcast. I'll plug our pod. We're kind of all over too. I'm sure you guys see us all over Twitter, kind of promoting our blasphemous takes as well. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come on. We got to get a movie draft pod, Real Talk pod, mega draft. We got to get that in the works.
That'd be a ton of fun. Yeah, we'd have to pick a massive filmography though. We couldn't do that with 12 spots.
This is true. Yeah, we'll find something out there. Thank you, Sophie, Ben, for participating. Thanks as always to myself for, you know what? I didn't yell this episode. I feel like that's a plus. We're improving little by little.
Good. Yeah.
Anger management issues coming into check. I thought it would have been this pod. I guess it wasn't. Be sure to listen to this podcast, the Movie Draft Podcast, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes will release weekly on Tuesdays. We'll see you then.